Welcome to the Surplus Line Association of California's 2022 annual meeting, where we are working together toward tomorrow. Today, we welcome the many surplus line insurance professionals in the audience, as well as members of the California Department of Insurance and SLA staff. Let's take a moment to review our antitrust resolution. When involved in meetings or other activities of the association, members of the association should be mindful of the antitrust laws and not engage in discussions or conduct with the purpose or effect, directly or indirectly, of fixing or stabilizing premiums or producer compensation, engaging in bid rigging or false quotes for insurance, engaging in potential anti-competitive conduct or activities that could adversely affect the cost, quality, or availability of insurance products or services, or engaging in any other anti-competitive conduct or activities affecting their business or the business of insurance. Members are advised that violations of state or federal antitrust laws may result in civil and/or criminal penalties, and that any member acting contrary to the intent of this resolution shall be subject to disciplinary action under the association's constitution. You have been admonished. And now, broadcasting from the SLA's headquarters in San Ramon, California, please welcome the Chair of the Board of Directors, Terri Moran, and Benjamin McKay, CEO and Executive Director. Ms. Moran.
Good afternoon, and thank you to everyone for taking some time out of your busy schedules to be with us today. I'm joined in studio with the SLA CEO, Ben McKay, for today's annual meeting, and we're excited to share with you where we are and where we are headed.
I'm glad to be here with you, Terry, and I'd like to also welcome everybody who logged on for today's meeting. Welcome.
Groundhog Day was 6 days ago, and for those of you who have seen the movie of the same name, this year's annual meeting may seem a lot like Bill Murray's never-ending cycle of living the same day over and over again. Out of an abundance of caution during the ongoing COVID pandemic, we are once again convening in an exclusively online format as we did in 2021. We had great hopes of having the meeting in a hybrid format this year, but alas, it was not to be. With any luck, we hope to be back with you in person in 2023. We have a very full and very exciting agenda today, so I'm going to briefly frame the meeting and then deliver my report. First, I'm going to report to you the excellent results that the SLA has had over the year, and then turn it over to Ben to talk about his vision for the association. I will then announce the results of our members' vote for the 2022 Board of Directors before introducing our keynote speaker, Princess Sarah Culberson, a compelling speaker with a unique perspective on one of our most important initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before I deliver my report, we have a couple of quick items to attend to. First are the meeting minutes from last year. Prior to today's meeting, we sent out an email with the 2021 minutes, and the attendees have approved those minutes by electronic vote. Second, I would like to introduce my fellow leaders on the Board of Directors, who have given me an amazing amount of help and support during my time as chair. First, we have our Vice Chair, Janet Beaver. Next, our Secretary-Treasurer, Rich Gobler. And last but certainly not least, our past chair, Bob Gilbert, who has provided me with so much guidance and wisdom over these past 2 years. Thank you to all of these talented, caring individuals who have shared their experience and expertise with me during my time as chair. It's clear as we convene today that 2021 was a repeat of 2020 in many ways, and not just the trials and tribulations of a global pandemic. On a positive note, 2021 was another banner year for results, both at the industry and association levels. On the industry level, we set another record with $12.7 billion in premium, a 14% increase over the previous record of $11.1 billion in 2020. Of course, as the industry grew, the SLA grew also, and we leveraged that growth to shore up our fiscal ship. Last year, the SLA completed the process of eliminating its liability for a pension that was frozen in 2010. Most of the eligible pensioners agreed to buyouts, and the few who did not have been taken on by a financial institution which is now administering their accounts and making the necessary payments. The SLA has also paid off a construction loan which was taken out after moving from San Francisco to San Ramon in 2017. As a result, I'm happy to report the SLA no longer has any bad long-term debt. Congratulations. Additionally, due to the prudent use of its stamping fees, the SLA has made major strides toward bolstering its contingency funds, which are there in the event of unforeseen circumstances, in short, a rainy day fund. We are now in a position to continue operating at a high level of efficiency and service to our members, even in the event of a prolonged downturn or other circumstances that may impact our cash flow. It's not just good management. Building our contingency funds also fulfilled the guidance we received from a routine CDI triennial examination. and it brought us in line with what other SLAs are doing around the country. Here, I want to take a moment to note that these great strides toward good fiscal health are the direct result of our senior leadership team's efforts and foresight. We began taking the steps needed to pay off our bad debts and shore up our contingency funds when the yield curve inverted in 2019. At that time, our leadership felt it would be prudent to prepare for a recession. Although the brief recession in 2020 came about for unanticipated reasons, the SLA was ready and kept clicking on all cylinders to serve its members, regulators, and California consumers. I am very proud of the way the SLA has solidified its fiscal position through good and prudent stewardship. Another initiative of which I am very proud is that we made employees first our defining principle during this global pandemic. Our mission is to help ensure a healthy, fair, and competitive surplus lines marketplace, and that can't happen without our employees at the top of their game. The global pandemic has taken a toll on all of us, and with the 120-member workforce largely working from home for 2 years, it took intention, creativity, and effort to maintain a cohesive team. To keep our staff working together for the good of consumers and our members, the SLA took several steps. First, we launched an internal communications plan to ensure that employees regularly received updates and useful information. We also created an employee wellness council and cohort groups and put together numerous online events and activities to keep our employees together and engaged during a time of widespread social isolation. Additionally, we redoubled our messaging around employee assistance program, encouraging employees who might feel sad or lonely to seek assistance or even just to reach out to fellow team members. Our efforts have been fruitful. We recently surveyed our employees, and I'm pleased to note that they overwhelmingly feel that the SLA has done a good job reaching out to them, checking in on them, and keeping everyone engaged and involved. Great job. 93% of employees surveyed said they were very satisfied with the SLA's efforts. I think the fact that we continue to meet and even exceed expectations during these unusual times speaks well of our efforts. Employees First is now fully ingrained in our corporate culture. Kudos to our leaders for finding new and innovative ways to keep our team together in a time when it could have been easy to come apart. Among our achievements this year have been the strides the SLA has made in providing ongoing education for its members. Once again, the SLA's foresight and preparation served us well. We had been working toward continuing education courses online before the pandemic hit. Because we had been working on these initiatives already, we were able to rapidly shift our course offerings entirely online when COVID forced us to stop holding in-person seminars. We've been able to bring our members an excellent series of continuing education courses, and our new Compliance Connections seminars and the online format has resulted in record attendance. The SLA has continued its decade-long push to become a modern, credible leader in our industry, and it's yielding results. As I speak to you today, we have 12 applications pending by insurers who want to be placed on our list of approved surplus lines insurers, the LASLI. We're also making strides in direct hands-on outreach to SLA members, letting them know that we are here and that we have much to offer them. In addition to keeping the lines of communication open with the admitted market, we are now building those ties with our own members much more actively than we have done in the past. This new emphasis on outreach was a priority for my predecessor, Bob Gilbert. I am pleased that we have continued to move forward in this area during my tenure. The SLA is at the top of its game, and it has been my privilege and honor to lead this association for the past 2 years. I am grateful to my predecessors and the SLA team for laying a solid foundation, which I'll hand off to my successor at the close of today's meeting. While there are too many people to thank in a 2-hour meeting, please know that I am very thankful for everyone who has helped the SLA continue to evolve as a modern, credible leader. With that, I will now turn things over to the chief driver of our ongoing evolution, our CEO, Ben McKay, with my congratulations for another terrific year on all fronts.
Thank you, Terri. Thank you, Terri. Thank you to the SLA Board of Directors for your steadfast guidance, especially through this pandemic that we're all suffering through in a lot of ways. I'd like to thank the California Department of Insurance for our partners there who help create this healthy insurance environment in which all of us thrive. It takes a lot of committed, competent people for that to happen, and the CDI is replete with such people. I also want to thank our incredible staff. If you look behind me, you can see pictures of our staff, all of them rolling through. These are the people that are providing best-in-class service to you, our members, and our stakeholders. Tremendous individuals, and they're the ones who actually do all the work. And then Terri, as a point of personal privilege, I want to thank you. I think you are probably the only SLA chair whose entire term was during a pandemic. And I say probably because it's possible that Jerry Sullivan was chair during the Spanish flu of 1918, but we don't have records that go back that far. But in all seriousness, you're absolutely the right person at the right time. Your method, your style of compassionate and wisdom leadership really resonated with me and with our employees. You gave me the gift of how to be a compassionate leader.
Thank you.
And that's truly a gift, and you are a gift to us. Thank you. My comment's going to have three parts. I'm going to talk a little bit about the new normal very briefly, and then I want to talk about the market, and then I want to talk about trends that we're seeing, just things that jumped out at me from the data. So you'll recall that back in March of 20, the powers that be told us this was going to be, a 2-week event, and the longest 2 weeks in human history, frankly. And then after the 2 weeks, they modified that. And at that point, we sort of looked at each other and said, we're going to be here for a while. Instead of this 2-week, 2-month, we better start thinking 2-year plus. And that was a lesson we learned called the Stockdale paradox. And I've spoken about that before. But a lot of the successes, Terry, that you mentioned were the result of us just buckling down and saying, okay, we're going to be in this posture for a very long time. So what do you do? And there's 4 things that sort of boiled down to 4 things for me. First is face the realities of what's going on. But then you also have to let your employees know that you're facing the realities. You have to be in it together. And that was an important lesson. It couldn't just be us, the senior leaders. And then we had to invest in the right technology, which I'm sure everybody has done the same thing, finding out what works for them. We wanted to watch our expenses, because who knows during a pandemic what's going to happen in the market. And then we had to change how we interact with our employees. We needed to be more active and more intentional. And you mentioned intentional in regards to DEI. And I think, Terry, if I had to come up with one word that came out of your tenure, that would be it, intentional. And everything we do, we're taking the time to be intentional about it. Not letting things happen, but really thinking about what's the right thing to do. So another great lesson from you. Every state is up, as you can see from this graph. California, we're up 18%. This is, the 3rd year in a row we're in double-digit growth. And that's super impressive, but look at Illinois. They're up 40%. And look at Arizona, they're almost up 38%. So that's all to say that the market's doing well across the country, at least in all the states that we have visibility into. Here in California, that increase equals 800,000 policies. So the SLA is processing 800,000 policies a year. And to give you some context, we have data analysts who review every policy. And then if there's errors in the policy, then they have to go back to the broker's filer, and have that error remedied. And then they can put the filing through, register the filing. Now, fortunately, there's only 300,000 or so errors, so it doesn't take too much time. It's a lot of effort. And I just wanted to give that context, and that's where the nearly $13 billion record premium comes from. But notably, the average premium per policy is up 69%. 69%. So if you're looking at that from the outside, you might think, wow, they're really taking advantage of this hard market. 69%, the rates are really going up. But in reality, it could be, and we created this graph, and you'll see that the orangey line, that's inflation adjusted, and the blue line is not inflation adjusted. But what this shows is the rate per item that we got in 21 was essentially the same that we had in 2006. So right before the Great Recession, we were at the same exact level that we are now. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. You can say we're really riding the hard market, or you might just say the market's equilibrating. We took a hit after the Great Recession, and now we're coming back up. But we'll see. And I know it has a lot of people nervous because they're thinking, is this the top of the market? Because the powers that be keep telling me I need double-digit increases year over year over year. How many years can we possibly do that? And especially if now we're at 06, is this the top now that we got to pre-recession levels? And this was a robust debate among the board members, right? We had members who thought, the end is near, and we had members who thought there's no end in sight, and then everywhere in between. And the SLA, we've done some predictive modeling, and our view is the curve is flattening, and we're probably mid this year, we're going to start seeing it sort of level off. And it makes sense. 2 years ago, we were 23%, last year, 18%. And this year, the punchline is the board projects 13%. So, that's a flattening. I think our model had it flattening a little harder than that, but we don't have the same visibility into the marketplace that board members do. So we landed on 13%. There are some winners and losers, of course, but we're only going to talk about the winners. The biggest industries that won were real estate, construction, and transportation. Combined, they're about 37% of the market. The fastest growing line by NAICS code is information, which you can see here. And information is like web hosting, non-internet broadcasting, motion picture, and it grew a robust 77.4%. So that's pretty incredible. Not surprisingly, healthcare has recovered. Arts and entertainment are recovering as we loosen up the pandemic rules. Wholesale and retail trade are rebounding nicely as well. So some of the sectors you would expect, and that's really what the market looks like to me right now. Moving to trends, obviously the number one trend is adapting to COVID. Open, closed, half closed, et cetera. We all know that one. The one that's more close to home is personal lines. Incredibly, personal lines in the surplus lines market have grown, and in fact, in the last 3 years, doubled. Now, it's still a small percentage of the marketplace. It's 2.7% of the market, but it doubled in 3 years. If that trend continues and it doubles again in 3 years and doubles again in 3 years, within 3 to 6 years, it'll be a material part of the marketplace. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a potential trend to watch. Looking at cyber, here's your year over year there. Cyber, double digit for the last 2 years. Incredible. Not surprising that's becoming a standard cover, I think. Here's the growth of cyber. You can see it's a steady upward trend line. Here's the growth of personal lines. Again, steady upward trend line. The other trend that's not going to surprise anybody is consolidation. The top 10 brokers now account for 64% of the premium and 34% of the items. So just by the numbers, we're seeing massive consolidation. It doesn't end. You pick up any insurance publication, you're likely to see another merger or acquisition. The only caution I have about that, and the only unique thing this year or last year that is different than the years before, is that we had, with the Aon Willis merger, we had Department of Justice throw the flag, right? So when you get all this consolidation, there's always this issue of when does it become anti-competitive? When are there too few players in some space to make it anti-competitive? And we didn't know. The answer was, well, we don't know. Now we at least have the first flag planted. We know that Aon plus Willis is too big or too complicated or too something for the Department of Justice. So that's an outer boundary that's been set that we haven't had before. So I just felt like that was an interesting development for us. In conclusion, I just want to say we've got an annual report coming out, should be out within a week. It will have a lot of these charts and numbers in it. To the extent that it doesn't and you want them, feel free to reach out to me or to anyone on the staff, and we'll get them to you. And so with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ben. I would now like to present the slate for the 2022 Board of Directors.
The 2022 slate for the Surplus Line Association of California's Board of Directors is, in leadership, for the position of Board Chair, Janet Beaver, Vice President, Excess Casualty, Tokyo Marine HCC, Casualty Group. For the position of Vice Chair, Rich Gobler, Corporate Senior Vice President and Managing Director, Burns & Wilcox. For the position of Secretary-Treasurer, John Washington, Senior Vice President, Arch Insurance Group, and, remaining as past chair, Terri Moran, Chief Underwriting Officer, Paul Hansen Partners. Board members will be Timothy Shea, President, R.E. Shea & Associates Insurance Brokers Incorporated, James Faley, Vice President, Vela Insurance Services, LLC, Robert Gilbert, Senior Director, Commercial Excess Casualty, Markel Specialty, a division of Markel Service Incorporated, Hank Haldeman, President, Worldwide Programs, Amwins Group, Sarah Nichols, Senior Vice President, Crum & Forster Insurance Brokers, Inc., Pam Quillisi, Chief Operating Officer, Krause & Associates Insurance Services of Northern California, Incorporated, Charles Rawson, Executive Vice President, USI Insurance Services, Kathy Schroeder, President, Sierra Specialty Insurance Services, Inc., Terrence Villar, Executive Vice President, Amwins Insurance Brokerage of California.
The SLA's authorized voting representatives elected the slate via an electronic vote prior to today's meeting, and I am pleased to announce our new leadership team. Janet Beaver will be our new chair, Rich Gobler will be the vice chair, and John Washington will be secretary-treasurer. I will serve as past chair. Additionally, I am glad to welcome Sarah Nichols as the newest member of the board. Sarah is taking on the seat vacated by Jason Howard, who has moved to Hawaii. Although we will miss Jason, we are sure he'll be quite happy in his new locale. We very much appreciate all of Jason's contributions, including 2 years on the board, 4 years on the stamping committee, and 4 years on the special advisory committee. We will be sending him a commemorative plaque as a token of thanks for his involvement. So welcome, Sarah, and aloha, Jason.
If I can, Terri, I'd just like to welcome Sarah as well. We are very happy to have you on the board. Thank you for your willingness to serve. It's a very important board, and we're glad to have you on it. Jason, we're going to miss you, man. We hope you have a great time in Hawaii. Hope you come back sometime, but as I'm sure everybody is telling you, we're going to come see you. So I hope your new place has a guest room. Take care.
We thank everyone for attending today, and we're at the point in our program for our keynote address, which is on an extremely important topic: diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is vital to keep our industry moving in the right direction, and the SLA endeavors to not just talk the talk, but to also walk the walk. The SLA is a very diverse organization, and this is by design, not by happenstance. 3/4 of our staff are Black, Latino, or Asian, and approximately half of our team are women. Additionally, we have instituted a DEI initiative at the staff level led by our COO, Joy Urban, and have created a subcommittee on DEI led by John Washington and John Larson. Although we think we are a leader on DEI efforts, we know there is much, much more that we need to do, and this is going to be one of our leading focuses going forward. So I am very pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Princess Sarah Culberson, who has an extraordinary journey that has been featured on CNN, ABC, and BBC Radio, among numerous other publications worldwide. Her story has trended #1 globally in over 60 countries. She is an internationally known thought leader, TEDx speaker, artist, and educator whose work addresses biracial and cultural identity and raises an awareness of issues impacting Sierra Leone. We are very fortunate to have her with us today.
Princess Sarah Culberson is an actress, philanthropist, public speaker, educator, and author who inspires others with her charisma and passion. She shared the story of reuniting with her birth father in the book she co-authored, A Princess Found, which is now being adapted into a major motion picture for Disney Studios by award-winning filmmaker Stephanie Elaine. Princess Sarah and her brother Hendo Joseph Pessoa founded the nonprofit Sierra Leone Rising, which provides clean drinking water, sanitary pads for girls, education, medical attention, resources to build schools and technology centers, and more throughout Sierra Leone. Princess Sarah has dedicated her life toward empowering others, helping people embrace their fears and turn them into opportunity, with a story that has touched the hearts of millions around the world. Introducing Princess Sarah.
Thank you so much, Terri and Ben. It's wonderful to be with all of you today. You all are amazing people doing incredible things for people in the world, and I want to say thank you for having me. And I'm going to take you on a little journey today from West Virginia to West Africa. So we're going to go on a little journey, and as you can see in this video, you can kind of see a little bit of Sierra Leone, which I'll talk to you more about in a little bit, and take you back through West Virginia, which is where I began on this interesting, diverse journey that I've been on. And I'm excited to share some of it with you today. And I know sometimes when you hear diversity, equity, and inclusion speakers, you might be thinking, well, what is this person going to talk about? Is this going to be too much, or is this going to be enough? So I'm just going to take you on a journey that we can go on together and just kind of see what you can find for yourself that supports you in your journey inside of this work. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning. I was adopted when I was a child. But before I go into my whole adoption story, I want to tell you a little about diversity, equity, inclusion from my childhood. But what does this actually mean? What is, and I brought up this slide, what is diversity, equity, inclusion? And then I added the B and belonging. That's something new that we've been adding in the diversity, equity, and inclusion world. And why in the world do we even have these conversations? What difference is it going to make, right? Well, on this journey that I'm going to share with you, I hope you really start to see why this is important and how it can impact all the work that you already do. Because you all make a huge difference for humanity, helping people with insurance, helping them figure out what they need. But the more you know about the people you're working with and for, the bigger difference you're going to make. So let me take you on this journey. So I was adopted 2 days after my first birthday by Dr. Jim and Judy Culberson. As you can see, my father's there with his fabulous hippie kind of beard. He's holding me, my mom's taking the picture, and this is the first day I came home to Morgantown, West Virginia, meeting my parents, meeting everybody in the neighborhood. And my sisters are so funny. So I had this new sister, Laura, blonde hair, green eyes, she was 10. And my sister Lynn, dark hair, big glasses. So here I am, this loving all-white family, and I'm kind of getting to know everyone, and I'm a little nervous, I'm a little scared. And my sisters wanted me to meet all the neighborhood girls. So they said, come here, you gotta see my new little baby sister Sarah, you gotta see my new little baby sister Sarah. So all the neighborhood girls came running, and they sat in this big circle. And it was so funny because, you know, I'm here with the big girls, the 11 and 10-year-old girls, and Catherine Morgan, my sister's good friend, looks over at me and looks at my sister, and she says, no, wait a second. Is she black, or does she just have a really good tan? So this is Morgantown, West Virginia. As I said, 3% African American. And in the neighborhood, the kids hadn't seen very many kids of color. My sister Lynn said, this is my new little baby sister, Sarah. She's part West African and part white American. And the kids in the neighborhood were like, oh, okay. So I was getting to know the kids in the neighborhood, growing up in Morgantown, and something interesting also happened when I was first adopted. My mom called her mother, my grandmother, to tell them, my grandparents, that I had been adopted. And the call went a little bit like this. Mom, we adopted this new little girl, Sarah. She's really cute. She's got all this curly hair. I can't wait to bring her home this summer to Illinois so you get to meet her. Hello? Hello? And there was silence on the other end of the line. My grandmother said, Judy, I think adopting this black little girl into the family is only going to cause problems, and I don't want to talk to you about it. Click. And she hung up on my mom. Now, my mom, being always the amazing woman, about 5'2", maybe a little over 100 pounds, tiny yet very mighty, said, you know what? I'm tired of these assumptions that my mother is always making about people. She said, we're all getting in the car this summer like we always do. Lynn, Laura, my sister's Benji the dog, we had a poodle, my dad, and we're gonna drive to Litchfield, Illinois like we always do. So we drove to Litchfield, Illinois on the windy roads for 12 hours from West Virginia to Illinois. And we get out of the car that summer and we drive up to the farmhouse. My mom grew up on this beautiful farm, and we drive up to the farmhouse. Everyone gets out of the car. My mom's holding me. Lynn, Laura, Benji the dog, my dad, and my mom's holding me, and we walk up to the farmhouse. My grandmother comes out of the farmhouse and the door kind of screeches open. She walks out with her arms crossed. She looks at me, she looks away. Then she looks back at me and she says, "Can I hold her?" And in that moment, my mom said I was breaking racial barriers within my own family. So I was getting to know this amazing family. And my grandmother, I got to ride in the dairy truck with my grandfather and feed the chickens on the farm with my grandma and just get to know this family and get to know everyone. I mean, I didn't look like everyone in my community. And I have to tell you, when you don't look like everyone and you're not the majority, it's challenging. Growing up, I always felt a little different and I didn't always feel like I fit in. Even though I had so much love around me, I still was very clear that I looked different than everyone in my family and in my community. Now, in this photo right here, this is now some of you might recognize it depending on your age, but this is my kind of 70s going into the 80s photo. I have my afro going. My sisters have their Dorothy Hamilton haircut, and my mom has a perm. I think my mother secretly wanted an afro like me, but that's all of us, and that's our family photo. So this is the family that I grew up in. So name it, I did it. I played basketball, varsity basketball, homecoming queen, full scholarship to college, student body president, class president. I was a little bit of an overachiever because I wanted to show people that I fit in and I wanted everyone to like me and no one to leave me. Now, I didn't realize all of this until I got older. It wasn't until I sat down to co-author A Princess Found, the book that I co-wrote with my writing partner, and I started to see all of these patterns that I had developed to kind of fit in. So I'm going to fast forward. I go on to college at West Virginia University. Then I go on to graduate school in San Francisco. And then I move to Los Angeles, where I start doing TV and film. And as I'm in LA, there's a wonderful woman who said, "Oh, I think you should put a weave in your hair so you look like everyone else on TV." So here I am, a woman of color, still trying to fit in, but now not in my home, but in the community. I grew up in West Virginia, but now in the Los Angeles acting community. And as I was in LA, I said to myself, I want to know more about my biological roots. I love my parents. No one will ever replace them, but I want to know more about who I look like, medical history. I had all these questions I wanted to get answered, and I didn't really know where to begin. So I did this amazing program called Landmark Worldwide. And my friend who worked for Microsoft, who was an amazing software engineer, had done this program, became hugely successful in his career, and then he started his own company. And I said, no, wait a second. I got to check this out, right? What is this all about? And I thought, well, maybe this will help advance my acting career. So as I was in the class, they said, tell the person sitting next to you where you're holding back in life. And I was sitting next to my friend Art, and I said, hey Art, I've really never talked about this, but I'm terrified to find my birth father. I know that my birth mother passed away of cancer when I would have been about 11. I got to see pictures of her. I never got to meet her, but I got to hear stories, and we had the same crooked tooth, and she loved to sing and dance and act like me. There are all these wonderful things I know about her, and I know that she was a white American, but I don't know much about my birth father. I just know he's West African and from Sierra Leone. And he said, listen. And I said, also, wait a second, I'm really afraid of being rejected. And he said, okay. I know a private investigator who won't charge you more than $100, and your birth father's going to love you. So I don't know about y'all, but I got nervous. If you want to step into something new and you don't know how it's going to go, it can be very scary. One of the things I've been learning on this journey is to find comfort in being uncomfortable, because that's really where breakthroughs occur. So here I am scared. I'm terrified. Well, I don't know if he's gonna wanna meet me, but I decided I'm gonna step into being open, loving, and courageous. So no matter what I find out, I'm just gonna stand in that. So my friends helped me with the private investigator. 3 hours, all the information I needed, not for thousands like I had thought originally, not even for 100 like my friend said he would charge, only $25. I write a letter to Maryland This is about 2004 when we used to actually write letters before Facebook and everything was huge. So I wrote a letter to Marilyn. 4 days later, I get a phone call. And there's this woman on the other line. And she says, "Hello, Sarah. This is Evelyn. How are you?" And I thought, is this that Jamaican woman I met the other day? Because I couldn't get the dialect. And I wasn't expecting to hear from anyone so soon. She said, "I'm your auntie. We received your letter." And I started to cry. I said, "Thank you so much for calling. I didn't know if I would ever hear from you. I didn't know if I would ever see you." She said, "Sarah, I was there when you were born. I used to take care of you when your mother would go to the grocery store." She said, hold on, let me get your uncle on the phone." And then my uncle gets on the phone. He goes, "Oh, Sarah." I was like, "Oh my goodness." He says, "We are so happy you've been found. Do you know who you are?" And I said, "I'm Sarah." He says, "You are part of a royal family. Your great-grandfather was a paramount chief in Sierra Leone. Your grandfather was a paramount chief in Sierra Leone. Our family runs a chiefdom of now 70,000. You can be chief someday. Your grandfather was knighted Justice of the Peace by the Queen of England. You are a princess in this country." I froze. All of the fear came back up. Now, wait a second. Now my assumptions are going, right? We talked about assumptions a second ago. I'm like, well, what does this mean? What does a princess mean? Does that mean I need to be perfect? Do I have to wear dresses all the time? I can never now say a bad word, right? What does this mean? So I had to let all that go and just kind of be with all the information I was getting. They said, "Sarah, we're going to contact your father in Sierra Leone. He's going to be so happy to meet you." So they contact my father in Sierra Leone. And during that time, before they reached my father in Sierra Leone, because in 2004, very few people have cell phones. Cell phones actually in 2004 in Sierra Leone were an opportunity to have them. It was actually a privilege to have a cell phone. So they had to get a message from village to village to village to get a message to my father. So during those 2 weeks, which felt like forever, I started getting phone calls from all of these different African family members who live in the United States. "Hello, Sarah, I am your Uncle Ali, your father's favorite uncle. Hello, Sarah, I'm your Auntie Jenny. They used to call your father and me twins when we were little. Hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah." All of these different African family members are welcoming me to the family. When my assumption and what I had told myself is they're not going to want to meet me, they're not going to want to talk to me, and I don't want to mess things up. But what I had thought and my assumptions were completely wrong. I was welcomed with these beautiful open arms, just like this big hug. And they said, your father's going to call soon. After the 2 weeks went by, I heard my birth father's voice. He called. And the first thing he said to me is, he said, "Sarah, please forgive me. I did not know how to find you after you had been placed in adoption. Your name had changed. Everything had changed." And I said, "You know what?" He said, "I also want you to know that I was young, your mother, and I didn't know that she was pregnant. She told me, and then she said, I will take care of her. And then she said, I cannot do this. And so we chose to place you in adoption." I said, "Listen, if there's a day that goes by that you feel guilty, please don't. You gave me the best family in the world. And now I'm going to get to know you too. So I'm so excited. How do we do this?" He said, "Well, it's challenging for me to get a visa to come to the United States right now. Could you come here?" I said, "I would love to." So I flew to Maryland to meet all those African family members, "Hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah, hello, Sarah." And we planned a trip for 6 months later to go to Sierra Leone. And I get off the airplane and I walk down the stairs, and I don't know if any of you have been to West Africa in December, which is their summertime. I understood Africa hot on a whole nother way. Like my afro was like, boom. I thought this is intense heat. So I walk down the stairs on the tarmac, leaving the airplane, and I walk up and my father's standing there. And I'm so nervous and I'm so scared. And as I look at him, it's as if his eyes are saying, "Please like me, please accept me, please like me." And I just give him such a big hug and I say, "It's so good to finally meet you." And he said, "It's so good to finally meet you too." So we take a ferry from Lunge to Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone, and it's actually named Freetown because it's actually where Africans who were enslaved were returned, thus the name Freetown. So we got to spend the night in Freetown. And the next morning, there was a knock at the door, and my father gave me this beautiful green African dress. He said, Zena, I would love for you to wear this green African dress into our family's village. And he had a matching green shirt, and I said, okay, I would love to. So we drive on the bumpy roads to Bumpay, my family's village. And imagine for a second, there's these beautiful red mahogany dirt roads. I mean, gorgeous dirt that's just this deep reddish color. Beautiful green grass, these big bushy green trees. And here I am in Sierra Leone, and I can't actually believe that this is really happening. And I'm driving up into the village, and as I arrive, something completely beautiful happens. This little boy goes running up along the car. He runs up into the distance, and all of a sudden, I see 10, 20, 100, 200, hundreds of people surround the car, welcoming me to my family's village. And then all of a sudden, everyone parts, and all the women of the village come forward wearing the same green dress that I had been given that morning, and they're singing. They're singing, pa-da-tang, tang, tang, pa-da-tang, tang, tang, pa-da-do-ah-do, way, poo-da. Sarah, go to. They're singing, we're preparing for Sarah. It was literally life-altering. I couldn't believe this was happening. I didn't win the basketball game. I wasn't the homecoming queen. I just showed up. And that was enough. Now, I want you to see this homecoming. I'm going to share this video with you. But before I share it, this beautiful homecoming was spectacular. But I also saw what happened after an 11-year civil war from 1991 to 2002. I saw the remnants of this war because I was in Sierra Leone in 2004 and the war had just ended 2 years before. So the beautiful homecoming was so special. And then I also saw the reality of what they had lived through, something that I had never experienced and really could not have imagined. So I'm gonna let you see this video.
I feel like I'm in a dream. We are just kilometers away from my father's village of Bumpay, and my emotions are all over the place as I anticipate reaching my family's village. Little did I know my green African dress, a cherished gift from my father, would play such a big role in my arrival, my homecoming. A celebration of traditional dance and song went on into the night. Speeches were made by the chief and elders of the tribe stating that I could be their chief someday. It was amazing, overwhelming really.
the excitement started to die down. After, as you saw in the video, you saw the beauty of meeting everyone. You saw what happened after this 11-year civil war. My uncle said, our daughter has come home, she can be chief. But there's one thing to hear all that in front of everyone, and there's another thing to understand what that looks like. And there was to be a chief, you're chief until you die. It's not a term like a presidency, you're actually chief until you die. And there are huge responsibilities in the country, in Sierra Leone. And that's what I started to see. Being a princess in Sierra Leone is not about diamonds and pearls, even though there was a blood diamond war that happened in Sierra Leone. We're known for our diamonds. But what I really learned is responsibility. Responsibility to my family, to my chiefdom, to the community. But what in the world does that look like? I grew up in Morgantown, West Virginia, in my loving all-white family. How do I know what this looks like inside of this whole new culture? Talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, a whole new world that I knew nothing about. Here I am. Now what? I can't go back to the United States and act as if I didn't see this. Like the movie Blood Diamonds, if any of you have seen that movie, maybe you have, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jiman Hansu, right? I couldn't push pause and then go grab popcorn or something. This is my family, this is my life, and they lived through this. I can't act like I didn't see this. But I don't know what to really do about it. So I love this quote, and I want you to take a moment to read it. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And I feel like inside of this diversity, equity, and inclusion work, it's vulnerable, it's scary, it's sometimes confronting, and it is for all of us. Even though I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion speaker, I'm still learning as well. I'm constantly educating myself. And what I had to learn in going to Sierra Leone is I had to step into my vulnerability and allow myself to just listen. Because what I learned is in Sierra Leone, people have lived in so many different, they've had so many different experiences. And they've lived and had experiences that I can't even imagine. So as you can see, these circles that I have here, I showed up with my assumptions. And I don't know about all of you, but sometimes your assumptions are right. I come into things and I do D&I work and I have my assumptions, and then I have to stop and check myself. And I don't think assumptions are actually bad. I think assumptions can be wonderful if we challenge them, if we really actually go and question our assumptions. And what I did is I showed up to Sierra Leone and I had my assumptions thinking, can I bring t-shirts for the students at your school to my birth father? I said, and he said, we need desks. The kids are sitting on the floor after this war. And my American mind went, okay. And I had to really take a moment and pause and think, because sometimes we think we know how people are, what they need, what their experiences are. And what I've learned on my journey is I have no idea. I really don't. I can come with my assumptions, but I really need to listen and learn. And when I pause and allow myself to listen and learn, that's when I can really see, are my assumptions really correct? And very often they're not. I have to call myself out. My assumptions are not always correct. And I also had to learn in Sierra Leone to have compassion. And it's sometimes hard. I have no idea what it's like to go through an 11-year civil war. My father and my siblings were in hiding. And my father was a principal of a school, so he would actually help kids study at night by candlelight while they were hiding from the RUF, the Revolutionary United Front. I don't know about any of you. I know there are people also on this call that might be coming in from London. So people have had all different backgrounds and experiences who are here part of this conversation. But I don't know if any of you have been through a war, but I haven't, and I don't know what that's like. And I had to learn compassion. Inside of DE&I work, it's so important to have compassion for people, even if we don't understand, even if we've not had the same experience that someone else has had. And one of the other things I've learned is to reiterate and recreate, as you can see in that bubble down there, what I've heard. Because sometimes people share things and we hear them and we make our own decisions about what they've said, but it's so powerful to reiterate what they said. So we sat down, for example, with everyone in the tribe. I took my parents who adopted me to Sierra Leone, my amazing family to Sierra Leone, to meet from West Virginia to West Africa. So we all came together and we started working together. And we had all these diverse voices sitting down at the table, having conversations. We didn't have just a select few. We didn't have the lawyers and the doctors and the other section chiefs. We had everybody. We were listening to the women, to the children, to kids who are at the local high school, to the amputees in the community who lost their arms and legs during the war. Also, we were talking to people and having people translate who are illiterate. Because what I've also learned in this DE&I and belonging work is the power when we're listening, but also listening to the people we're working with or being of service to. Unless we hear their voices, I really had no idea what we were working with. I couldn't walk in with my assumptions. I really had to ask questions and learn. And then I would say back, so what I hear is that you need clean drinking water. These wells go dry because they're hand dug. Maybe we can work with an organization who works with people on the ground to dig wells so people have clean drinking water. Because they weren't so interested in t-shirts, right? At the high school that I first thought, oh, let's bring t-shirts for the kids. Actually, we need water. Actually, we need desks. So when I listened and reiterated what they said, I really started to learn. And that made me and our family, even my family who lives in Sierra Leone, we all started to learn what the chiefdom really needs. And you know what I have to say? The next one is about getting uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to walk into a whole new world and a culture that I know nothing about. I am a person of color living here in the United States, but going to Sierra Leone, it is a whole new culture and I needed to learn, and it was uncomfortable. I'm gonna call myself out. But that's okay. When you are doing DE&I work, it will be uncomfortable. And when you are uncomfortable, John Donovan, the former CEO of, one of the former CEOs of AT&T, said to me when we were working together, he said, I know when I'm uncomfortable, I know I'm in the right place. And that's one thing I want to share with you. This kind of work is uncomfortable. And if you are getting uncomfortable, bravo. You're doing it right. Because that's part of the journey. And I was uncomfortable in Sierra Leone, learning about the culture, learning about what is needed. But what I want to also say, even when you're uncomfortable, we tend to want to walk away. And I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm good. But we cannot stop having the conversation. So we can go back to things. We can always revisit. It's never too late. Linda Rose Winters, an incredible diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging diversity director that I worked with for 11 years, said, it's never too late to go back and address something. Sometimes we think, oh, that's in the past, but no, it's not. So this work is ongoing, it's continuing, and it helps us grow in so many ways, and it's okay, and it's important to keep having the conversations. Something else I would like to talk about is intersectionality, and some of you might know what it is. And you know, what is intersectionality? And I'm going to read the definition that I have here, but I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about it. It's the interconnected nature of social categorizations, such as race, class, gender, and so on. So there are a lot of different intersections, for example, that make up who I am. I identify as a woman, as a biracial Black identifying woman. I am, I don't want to tell you my age, but you can look it up. But there are all these different intersections that make up who I am. I'm somebody who grew up in the 70s going into the 80s. I'm somebody who grew up with 80s music. I'm somebody who grew up with two parents in the household. There are all these different parts of intersections that make up my identity. I'm not just one thing. I'm actually a lot of different things. As someone who has a master's degree, as somebody who I don't know, I'm thinking about all these different parts of who I am, but I want to say there are different parts, intersectionalities, about what are the different intersections that make up who we are. What are the different intersections that make up who you are? I'm a daughter. I'm a mother. I'm an auntie. I'm a wife. Like, these are the different intersections that make up who I am. So what are the intersections that make up who you are? What are the different intersections that make up the people who you're working with? What are the different intersections of the people that you are serving, who you might be serving in an insurance way? What do they need? But we got to really get to know them to really know what's needed. So what if we started to make change together? And when I say that is, we've been living for a long time in this COVID world, right? And it has been challenging. You all have been working your tails off, I'm sure, in all these different levels, supporting people with insurance and medical needs on a whole nother level. And I feel like this time has come for whatever reason, and I don't know. But I do know this is really time for us to learn and take a step back and reassess and make some changes in how we operate in life. So we can come out of COVID, hopefully at some point, and go, oh gosh, I'm glad that's over. Or we can actually come out of COVID and say, what did I learn? What have I taken on during this time? Am I still the same? Did I challenge myself in any way? Did I take on my assumptions? Like, what have I really looked at? Now, I talked about the power of listening and learning, but I also want to share with you, when I went to Sierra Leone, I had to learn more about myself and learn who I am, so I can really be powerful in listening to others. So learning about the different intersections that make up who I am, so I can really work together with the community. So I challenge you to kind of look at, what are the different intersections that make up who you are? The other thing I had to do is I really had to educate myself on Sierra Leone and the culture. I couldn't, and I had to really listen when I was doing that. You can read in books, which I highly recommend. Books are so powerful and so important as resources, and I have a book to share with you at the end as a possible resource to guiding you in this work. But I had to educate myself on Sierra Leone, on this completely different culture that I knew nothing about. And I really realized that I had to have tough conversations with myself, with my family, with my own identity. And these tough conversations are actually what lead to breakthroughs. But sometimes we have to have them, and we have to allow ourselves to get uncomfortable. I love this bullet point I have here. Isn't it easier just to not say anything and stay silent on these topics? Is it really easier to stay silent on these diversity, equity, inclusion topics? Or what would it look like if we actually addressed them and really looked at ourselves and the issue? It's not comfortable, but what if we actually did do that? What could be possible? When I went to Sierra Leone and we really started to listen and we had the diverse voices at the table, we started working together and we're digging wells. We've dug 12 wells that are serving, we dug 9 wells that are serving 12,000 people with clean drinking water. And we've now taken on, with the president of the country, who is my uncle, we're going to have clean drinking water for the entire country. But that only happened because we listened. It only happened because we challenged our assumptions. It only happened because we asked questions. And we allowed ourselves to get uncomfortable because we didn't know, how in the world are we going to do something like this? But we took it on. And things are happening because we did that. Isn't this somebody else's responsibility? Can somebody else do the DE&I work? I've done it. I'm good. We're all constantly learning. That's the only way to grow in this world. Whether you are on this call and you're 25 or you're 65, this work is for all of us. I did a reading, a book study with a book that I'm going to refer to all of you, with a group of people in West Virginia, family, friends, professors from the university at West Virginia University, and community. Everyone was there was one woman who was in her 30s on the call, and everyone else was about 60 and up on the call. And we read the book, how to be an anti-racist. And it was confronting for all of us. But this group said, I want to take on looking and learning more about these conversations that are happening in our world right now. And it was confronting for all of us. It was challenging. People didn't want, there were some conflicts that happened, but there were breakthroughs that were so beautiful that happened. Predominantly everyone was white on the call. And there were 2 of us who were African American on the call. And having people learn from everyone's experience was so powerful. So, so powerful. So I just want to recap some things. What if we take on walking in other people's shoes, making sure people are being heard, reiterate back to them what we have heard, because sometimes we may have misheard them or they might not have meant it exactly that way. And can we have compassion for each other even if we don't have the same experience? And can we, now this is not always easy, this one can be hard, can we take on not making people wrong even if we think they are? Now that's something we can also practice in our families. Sometimes I have to work on that myself. But really, can you take on not making people wrong even if you think they are? And can you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough and really share with people how you feel? People who work next to you, people who are, if you're a leader in your organization, or if you are working with someone figuring out what's best for them, can you allow yourself to be vulnerable? One of the major things I've learned is when I allow myself to be vulnerable, which isn't always fun, people then feel like they are safe and they can be vulnerable with me and share. That's a lot about what this work is about as well. And don't stop having the conversation. So I want to pause and leave you with a few takeaways to think about. I would like for you to take, of these 3 things, which I'm going to read out loud, I want you to do at least one, maybe all 3 this week. So I'm going to read them. What is an assumption you have made this week about someone or something? Okay, so take a moment. What's an assumption you made about someone or something? Now, I'm going to tell you, I made an assumption about a speaking engagement I was going to have in Southern California. I made an assumption about the people at this place, and I caught myself and I said, Sarah, let's stop and let's get to know the people. And boy, was I wrong, and boy, was I so pleasantly surprised and had such a wonderful time. But I had to catch myself. So we all do this, we're human, okay? So what is an assumption that you have made this week about someone or something? And how can you challenge this assumption? So what can you do? Could you go and talk to the person and just get to know them better? Could you look at yourself and go, maybe I'm not right. This is something we can do personally through this DE&I work and everywhere in your life that's so powerful. So powerful. Another thing I'd love for you to possibly take on is write down the intersections that make up who you are. That's really powerful. What are the intersections that make up who you are? Are you a white woman, heterosexual, mother, daughter, grew up in Florida or London? I'm making this up. What are all the intersections that make up who you are? So you can start to see the different background of who you are and the different parts that make up who you are. That will help us identify the different parts that make up others. And how can diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work impact you, your family, and your work? Take a moment to think about it. How could this even be helpful within your family, in your community, in your neighborhood, where you work, with the people that you serve? You all, like I said, I made a note here. I wrote down, actually in talking to Terri and talking to other people at your organization, I started to learn about what you all do. And you're people who, what I wrote here, you rebuild lives. You help rebuild lives. not just financially, but rehabilitation. You help people get to their better selves. You make a huge, huge difference in this world. When you take on this diversity, equity, and inclusion work, whatever piece you take away from what I've shared or what you've heard, when you take that on and maybe allow yourself to be a little uncomfortable, it's incredible how you will impact others, yourself and the people that you're working with. It will only help your organization grow. It'll help the organization financially as well. That's not the only reason we do this work, because it's so important to do it to connect us with human beings, but it makes a huge impact in so many different ways. So here's a book that I told you about that I read with a group of people about 30s to 80s. There were a couple 80-year-olds on the call. Believe it or not, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. This is a powerful book. Now, some people might look at this and go, well, I don't need to read this. I got this. Or some people might, this is too much. Or some people on this call might go, oh, this is perfect. Maybe allow yourself to get a little uncomfortable and jump in and check this book out. It's wonderful. It's powerful. You could do a group of people talking about this book. There's so much you could do with this. So I want to leave you with that as a possibility, as a resource to take on and look at. I read this book with my 80-year-old dad. We sat down and discussed it. He was part of that group. And he said, Sarah, I am learning so much. So it doesn't matter where you are in doing this work, your age, gender, this book is so powerful for everyone. And last but not least, I want to say to stay in touch. If you have questions, if you want to talk more, if you want to know about our work in Sierra Leone, this gives you all the information to stay in touch if you want to be in touch for any reason. One of the things we're working on is an incredible animation to have kids learn about cultures around the world so we can have kids start learning younger. So we're going to be putting out all kinds of information about that and about the Disney movie and all the things we're working on. So if you want to stay in touch in any way, here's the information of how to do that. And last but not least, I want to say thank you for having me. Thank you for being willing to even look at this work, because it's not easy. And I totally applaud you for even showing up today, listening to this, listening to me and letting me share. And I also want to acknowledge you for the difference. Again, I want to acknowledge you for the difference that you make for people. You are one of the industries that really impacts lives. I had a horrible injury years ago, and my insurance literally helped save my life. So thank you for what you do. And please continue to have yourself grow so you can keep impacting so many people, because you make a huge difference in the world. So thank you.
Princess Sarah, that was an amazing presentation. I believe this topic is one of the most relevant business topics right now. We do have some questions from the audience, and I know we can't get to them all. Here's the first one. What advice would you give to leaders who want to implement DEI initiatives but don't know how to start?
That's actually a really great question, Terry. So people are kind of challenged with, how do I start even doing this work? Where do we begin? One, having speakers. That's so helpful. Having speakers with smaller groups to have discussions is also very helpful. And they can actually start creating a whole format. You don't have to figure it out on your own. There are all kinds of diversity, equity, inclusion folks. I know many of them that I could connect you all with, who actually have curriculums for organizations, companies, corporate America, to really help people with the steps for how to even get this started. So you don't have to do it on your own. You're not alone in this. So that's one of the ways I think is really great, to have people start the conversation within the company and then start a very easy, light curriculum that's actually very fun, sometimes challenging and can be confronting, but actually really rewarding.
Princess Sarah, what would you say is the most difficult part of implementing a DEI program?
That's a really, really great question, Ben. One of the most difficult parts of implementing a DEI, I think, presentation is what I've noticed when working with organizations is people are so worried about people getting upset. Oh, I don't know if we should do this because I'm worried that people might get upset. Well, that might happen when we do this kind of work, or when we're doing anything that's new. Change causes people to get confronted. That's just part of the journey. But I think it's something that's so valuable and so very, very important. So I think what can be very helpful is to let people know we're going to start this slowly. We're going to work at our own pace, because I think people can get fearful and confronted, and you have to start slow and you have to start one step at a time. Basically, what is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? What does that look like? What are microaggressions? What's privilege, which can be such a triggering conversation as well, but we all have different levels of privilege. How can we look at that? And how can all of this work really serve what we're doing for our customers and the people and our colleagues? So when you look at it in that mindset, I feel like it makes it easier for people to connect with the work.
Do you plan on going back to becoming Chief of Sierra Leone?
That's a really great question. Do I want to be a chief in Sierra Leone? And I've thought about this. People have asked me this for years. And like I mentioned before, you are chief for your whole lifetime. And Terri, I know you hold a very big role in the company, and you know what it's like to be responsible in so many different ways. And as the chief, you're responsible for thousands upon thousands, 70,000 of people reporting to you, checking in with you, and section chiefs reporting. And I think it's a huge responsibility. I think my brother, to be totally honest, he's an attorney in Sierra Leone, would be one of the best chiefs. However, when I get older, if that's something that the family asks me to do, I'm open. At this point in my life, I'm actually open. So whatever they say, I'm open to doing it.
Princess Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben and Terri. You've been amazing. Thank you for asking me to come and speak to your amazing community, and enjoy your journey, and thank you so much.
And now, before we move toward the conclusion of our program here today, we're going to take a moment to honor some treasured individuals who are no longer with us. I would now like to welcome our incoming Chair, Janet Beaver, to the show. Janet, glad to have you join us.
Thank you, Terri and Ben. Today I have the honor of making a special presentation to our outgoing Chair, Terri Moran, to commemorate not only her 2 years as the board chair, but also her many years of service to the SLA and the California broker community. Terri, you have accomplished so much here at the SLA that I had to bring notes. There's no way I can remember all of this, and I want to share all of this accurately with the audience. You've served on our board of directors since 2015 as chair for the last 2 years and as vice chair in 2018 and 2019. You were Secretary Treasurer in 2017. You also served as a member of the Stamping Committee in 2014 and as chair of that committee in 2018 and 2019. Additionally, you have served the last 4 years on the Audit Committee. And you've spent the last 2 years mentoring the incoming chair. It is my honor, on behalf of the SLA and the industry, to recognize your service today with a replica of the Lutine Bell, which hangs in the Lloyd's underwriting room in London. Traditionally, when Lloyd's received news that an overdue ship had either arrived safely or had been lost, it would ring the bell. Twice for good news, once for bad news, so that everyone with an interest in the ship could learn the news simultaneously. Terri's term as chair has been unique in the SLA's 85-year history. It overlapped entirely with the global COVID pandemic, and she has steered our ship through it with skill, tact, and care. Terri placed special emphasis on keeping our employees engaged and cared for during a long period of remote work. She always looked out for the human side of the business, even personally calling employees to check in on them. Terri's leadership helped the SLA continue to keep working for its members and the entire surplus lines community. Now, I'll ring the bell twice to signify that Terri has led us through the storm and brought our ship safely back to port.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you to everyone who has helped me in my role as chair over the past 2 years. Ben?
Yeah, I'd just like to add my thanks for all of you for tuning in and for all your support of the SLA. We very much appreciate it, and hopefully next year we can do this live and in person. I look forward to seeing everybody again.
All business being concluded, I now declare this meeting adjourned.